The first 3 rounds of the 2024 NFL Draft are over, and I'm here to give you my grade for the Seattle Seahawks so far. Welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show, where we love Seattle Pro Sports. I'm your host, Mikey, and today we are here to talk about the NFL Draft for the Seattle Seahawks through the first 3 rounds. We have made our selections. In round 1, we selected Byron Murphy II, defensive tackle. In round 3, we have selected Christian Haynes, the guard. And I tell you right now, through our first 2 picks, I absolutely love it. I love that we are building the trenches. I have people I talk football with all the time, and what I always say to them is the way to get to championships is to build your lines on offense and defense. It has to be done. You know, I have a friend who we debate things all the time, and last year we were talking about if you had to pick one player in the NFL and you don't get the first overall pick, by the way. So you're gonna build an NFL franchise. So you can't pick Patrick Mahomes. That's what I'm saying here. Okay, you're starting a new NFL franchise. Who's going to be your first selection in the NFL? And I said Aaron Donald, right? So because I think that's how good of a player he is and that's how important the position is. Outside of quarterback. So watching the Seahawks draft the way they have drafted so far, it tells me that in this new era, they know this is what they need to address first. This is the biggest concern for this team is the trenches on both sides of the ball. And I'm glad that they have addressed it with their first 2 picks and that they got amazing players with those picks. Okay? I think a lot of you watched my instant reaction to Byron Murphy II being picked. And you have to remember that was an instant reaction. I was live. I recorded that live, my instant reaction to what was unfolding in front of me live. It wasn't like I watched what happened and I took time to think about it, and now I'm telling you what my thoughts are. It was instant reaction in the moment. And in the moment, just seeing all the players that were available, my thought process was, we could have traded back. We didn't. And I was bummed about that because I thought, we could have got some good value out of the players available while still getting a great player. Right? I mean, look at the players that were drafted behind us. If we would have traded back, even with the Vikings, we still would have had a lot of choices of great players still available to us because there's so much great talent at the top of the draft this year. Because again, we're getting to the end of the COVID players who all got to stay an extra year, so everybody's coming out at once. So there's a flood of talent coming out right now. So there was going to be a lot available to you. Now, we can see the trades that happened in reality and what was offered. Okay, so now that we know the trades that were accepted, we know that there wasn't great offers on the table to move off that 16 pick. So my instant reaction was the reaction of, thinking maybe there was a possibility that there was going to be some good trades on the table. But now we know there wasn't. So that makes the pick look even better. I already thought the pick was a good pick because I think the player is good. I just thought, oh, this team has a lot of needs. I would like them to see, or I would like them to make moves to give themselves more chances to get players in this draft because there's so much talent in it, so that they can address all the holes they have. Because again, this team was not one offensive player away from getting to the Super Bowl or the playoffs. This team's not one defensive tackle away from getting to the Super Bowl or even the playoffs. So far, though, the first two picks in Byron Murphy II and Christian Haynes, we are filling those holes. And it is just so happens that the draft is falling to us perfectly, that we can get some of the best players at their positions, without having to move. And that's what my reaction was to our first pick, Byron Murphy. Right? Was I was thinking, man, we're gonna miss out on a lot of great talent. But with the way teams are picking, just offensive players like going off the wall here, we were able to get Byron Murphy. And then you look at today, and now our pick looks even better, because if we now that we see what actually happened, we see that defensive tackles, they went on an insane run there in the beginning of that second round. So again, as much as I really wanted offensive linemen to fill that need, we also need to get better up front on the defense as well. So we addressed that there in the first round, and then so much of the talent. Basically now all the defensive tackles that went, I wouldn't. By the time we got our pick in the third round, I wouldn't have been excited about anybody that was available. So I think we got potentially the best. I didn't have him graded the best. By my grades, I had him second best. But Byron Murphy, if they had him as their best, then by their standards, they got the best defensive tackle in this draft. And then to me, in round 3, this is almost falling better than my, like, all those fantasy mock drafts we did. We did like what, 37 of them? And the ones that we were doing that were realistic, this is falling even better than those, because we didn't think Christian Haynes was going to be available in the third round. A lot of times we were making those trade backs, and the ones that we were trying to be realistic, we were trying to make a trade back, and in some of those, we were taking Christian Haynes in the second round. But no, he falls to us all the way in the third round here. So again, it makes that first round pick of Byron Murphy look even better, because all the defensive tackles that we would have wanted were already gone by the third round. And in reality, we were able to get Byron Murphy, and Christian Haynes was still available in the third round. You didn't think that was going to happen, but that's exactly how it happened. Because in my eyes, Christian Haynes, so we have a lot of players that we were talking about, like Troy Fatanu, Graham Barton, potentially a Jackson Power Johnson. We were talking about players that you can move to guard, that these would be some of the top offensive linemen in the draft, but you need to move them to the guard position. We're talking about Christian Haynes, potentially the best pure guard, 4-year starter at guard in the draft, and you got him in the third round. So again, John Schneider holding steady to his belief that you don't overdraft and you don't overpay a guard. Well, he in my eyes, defensive tackle is the more important position. So they get that done in the first round while still getting a great offensive lineman in the third round. Just like last year's draft, when people were upset that we weren't addressing offensive line, we weren't addressing offensive line, and then I think we got a great pick in Oluwolowatimi in the 5th round, who will be the starter at center this year. I thought he should have won the job last year, but they wanted to, for whatever reason, they wanted him to sit behind for a year. But he will be the starter this year. So we are building that core offensive line now. We already know that we had 2 good tackles. So this is, our trenches are just looking better and better, both sides of the ball already. And again, now that in reality we know what the trade offers were, we don't feel bad about not accepting those, because they were not enough to trade back and miss out on somebody like a Byron Murphy. It just wouldn't, the added value that was coming in was not enough. And you hear John Schneider say that in a press conference. So a lot of you were trying to tell me, oh, because you saw my instant reaction, you thought, and because of the way I reacted, you thought I thought it was a bad pick. I was more just bummed about, in my head, I thought there was going to be a lot of value that was potentially out there to be added. Turns out there wasn't. But a lot of you were telling me, oh no, look how fast we got the pick in. They knew they wanted him right away. They didn't even take a look at offers. Well, you're wrong. We know you're wrong, because John Schneider said he did take calls for offers, and he said it was really hard to not take those offers. He was tempted to take the offers that were on the table, but essentially Byron Murphy, the player, in their eyes, was better than the offers that were on the table. So they did take calls. They did potentially think about trading out of that spot. Just the offers weren't good enough. And then when we see the trade offer that happened in the very next pick behind us, if you say, if that's what was being offered, then yeah, no, do not do that. Just go ahead and take who you think is the best player, because that's not what we're looking for. So overall, so far, when I first saw the first pick, and when I didn't know that the trade market was horrible, I was thinking in my head, oh, so far this draft, I'm going to have to give this a B grade, because they're missing out on all this value that's out there. Now we know it's not out there, and now we see that we're able to get one of our target guards all the way in the 3rd round here. I have to give this draft an A, because now we get to take everything into context. It's not just an instant reaction, emotional reaction. This is taking into all the reality into context. And now that we know the details, we know the context of how things played out, we got to give this an A. It has to be an A. You can't give it anything else but an A right now. Initially I was like, oh man, this is a B, and if we don't get into this 2nd round now, all the linebackers that I want are going to be gone. All the offensive linemen I want are going to be gone. How are we going to address, because that, in my eyes, that was our biggest positions of needs. Offensive line, linebacker, defensive line, and still safety, to me, is going to be a need in this draft. But I was looking at it like, oh man, all the guys we are going to be gone. Well, it didn't play out that way. It just keeps falling in the Seahawks' favor. Let's hope on day 3, rounds 4 through 7, then it keeps falling in our favor as it has so far, and this can get even better. I'm hoping that we can end this whole draft process and then come back at the end and say we got to give this an A plus. Right now, unless they'd have to do something horrible. Like right now, though, I can't see anything being anything less than an A, just based off the first 2 picks. And just based off of the first 2 picks, I don't think it could be anything less than an A minus. They could still potentially make some horrible picks here in the final 4 rounds, but because the first 2 picks are so good, I don't think you could drop it below an A minus. And then that when you also couple that into thinking our second round pick, essentially our second round pick is Leonard Williams. When you think about, you can think about Sam Howell being an additional, because I think if I remember right, the way the value of the swapping of the trades came out, I think it ended up being like we still have a 4th round pick, but I think the value ended up being like a 4th round pick, somewhere in that range, I believe. But you can look at it as like, oh, we had an extra 4th round pick and we used that on Sam Howell as our backup quarterback, potentially somebody being developed for the future if we don't find the next quarterback in the next 2 years, type of deal, right? So essentially the actual picks that we made in the draft, and then the pick that we spent, and the value of another pick that we swapped picks around for, are also players that you would be happy with, knowing that they actually have production in the NFL level and what they could do at the NFL level. You're happy at those with those picks as well. So I mean, really, yeah, this is an A. I can't see it getting below an A minus right now. And again, a high potential of being an A plus at the end. We can talk a little bit more about these players. We haven't really talked about them too much in depth, because I did a instant reaction, right? So Byron Murphy, we're talking about 6 foot, 297. Again, 10 1/4 inch hands. Now the one knock against him is going to be his 32 3/8 inch arms, right? So he is on the shorter side for the position. He does have below average length for the position, but you can watch this guy play and you understand what what they see in him, and the potential that is there, because with him, he can play nose tackle, he can play the 3 tech. You could potentially put him out at edge. I like the idea of Byron Murphy II, Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, all rotating across different positions across that defensive line, and again, just really confusing offensive line and confusing quarterbacks, not knowing who's rushing, who's stunting, who's twisting, who's doing what. They're not. It's going to keep players confused. We saw how well that worked for Mike McDonald with the Ravens, and with this pick, we can see how that is starting to form now, as long as we keep everybody here. Again, the Seahawks are in a little bit of a sticky situation with the cap space now, so I'm wondering if anybody is going to get moved before this is all said and done, or if they're just going to go ham on restructuring contracts throughout the rest of the offseason to make sure they can get under the cap to sign everybody. But we'll see. But yeah, I mean, and then Byron Murphy, his other numbers, why don't I pull them up on screen here for the YouTube watchers, right? 40-yard dash was 4.87, 10-yard split 1.69, vertical 33-inch, broad jump 9 foot 3-inch, and yeah, he did the bench press 28 reps. All right, so again, very athletic, for the position. Really strong, has a great pass rush, really is a big time disruptor. Uh, I'm sure a lot of you are Washington Husky fans, so you'll see in that playoff game, he got in the backfield a lot. He was never able to finish, and that is the one knock I would also have against him as well. Is that he's got moves to, he does have the moves to beat offensive linemen, but he doesn't always finish the job. But he is still doing his job by disrupting the flow of the play. You would just like him to be in a little bit more control and be able to finish some of these plays off. You can also see that at times when he's rushing. This is a guy, when I was watching on tape, because some people were saying that maybe I should have watched more tape on him. I watched a lot of tape on this guy, because you got to remember that this was one of the first guys that was mocked to us, like when months and months and months ago, when mocks first started coming out after the season was over, right? So when that happens, naturally you look into the guy a lot. Another problem I saw with this guy when I was watching tape is he can be overly aggressive and get kind of, he gets kind of out of control, and you'll see him, as strong as he is and as much as he can put players on their back, you'll see him get out of control. You see his footwork get out of control, and he ends up on his back. Not because I don't think it's because the other players even, we see how strong he is. I don't think somebody's outpowering him. I think he's getting his leverage out of whack. He's getting his footwork and his, the positioning of his legs out of whack, and then he's easy. He can be easy to topple over when that happens. But, overall, most of the time, he's got the moves to get pass rush. He's got the strength and power to get into the backfield. So, just as long as he can start finishing a little bit more often, then potentially we are talking about this being Mike McDonald's just Matabuke over here in Seattle now, as he used him over there with the Ravens. So again, a lot of big potential there, and in Mike McDonald's system, you might see him produce numbers. This is not a position where you usually see big numbers produced, but with the type of player and athleticism that he has, the drive he has, high motor he has, you could see him getting good production in Mike McDonald's system. Okay, so there's Byron Murphy. Let's go ahead and talk about Christian Haynes. All right, Christian Haynes, 6'3", 317 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, 9-inch hands. Again, another guy that maybe a little bit less than ideal length at the position, but overall, good enough athleticism, right? A 5-second 40-yard dash, 1.75 10-yard split, 33-inch vertical, 8'6" broad jump, and then he had the bench press of 25 reps. Now, this guy, again, we're talking about one of the top pure offensive guards in the draft. You see him, even though he's got those shorter arms, it seems like he gets them, he punches them out good and quickly to get on those blocks. It seems like he's always got his hips, his legs, he's got them square. So he's not, again, as how we just kind of talked about Byron Murphy, getting his legs crossed up and sometimes being easy to get knocked over. You don't see that with Christian Haynes on the offensive side of the ball. He's always in position that he needs to be, keeping his body squared up with the defender, so you're not going to see him get knocked over very often or very easily or knocked off of his spot, right? So I think he's going to be good there. You can go watch his highlights. You could see him get out in space. So for run plays where you're needing him to go out and be a lead, go around the tackle and be a lead blocker, he can do that. We see plays where he is going out and being a lead blocker on screens. Maybe that's going to help the Seahawks screen game even more. We know how bad that's been for years. So, a lot of good stuff here. If there's a downside to Christian Haynes at his position, it could be maybe it's because of his arms are a little bit shorter, his hands a little bit smaller. Maybe he's got to try to compensate. Maybe he gets a little bit too grabby, and you don't want to see him getting hold calls at this level. I mean, overall, we're talking about offensive guard third round. I don't really see any major downsides for Christian Haynes. At the point that we are taking him, yeah, I don't know. I think overall, just a good first 3 rounds for the Seahawks. Again, we can look at that second round pick as that was Leonard Williams, and yeah, you're very happy about having Leonard Williams on your team. So I think that so far we got to give an A to the Seahawks. Hopefully you're able to get my instant reaction out of your head, and also not keep conflating my instant reaction into thinking that the pick was bad. Again, I like the player. The pick is good. I just, in my mind, in the moment, thinking that there was all this value out there, I was bummed about the value that we were potentially missing out on. But now, in reality, now that we know what was out there, the pick was ended up being a great pick. All right, but let me know what you think now through the first 3 rounds. What would you give? You gave me grades on all my mock drafts, the 37 of them that I did leading up to this. What grade are you giving the Seahawks so far through the first 3 rounds? A, B, C, D, F. What grade would you give it? I want to know in the comments right now. Put it in there. What grade are you giving the Seahawks? All right. And knowing what is left, the final rounds, what do you think what's the highest potential you think that they have for this draft going the rest of the way? And what would you say is, what's the worst that they can do now, already knowing what we've done through the first 3 rounds? And that's going to be the episode today. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 225 subscribers now, so please hit it. I want to get to that number. Let's keep moving this thing forward. Let's hit that like button, leave those comments, and then podcast listeners do the same thing. Hit the follow button, hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and a written review, because it all helps the show grow, and I appreciate it immensely. And thanks for listening to the Seattle Sports Show, where we watch legends awaken. So take cover, because with the sea of sound you will see us rise to reign supreme and win forever.